So, some people might ask why I need my father to handle this. Well, when you cover up a crime, you create fraudulent medical records, and you do stuff like that, it creates its own problems. But I'm going to give a reason that even my father would like. Yeah, the father that is called swimming metal thefts, a fantasy, attachment disorder, and he didn't say this out loud. Remember, my mother's the one doing this, and he's just signing off on the paperwork. He's just giving her money to do these things. He's just allowing all my medical care to be cut off, moving me around. He's going along with this. These weren't his ideas, but he thought they were okay enough to go along with. And he signed the paperwork. So that makes it his, and that means that he's one of the few people that can fix it. But that's not the reason. If I were to handle this any other way, if I won the lottery, if I did it anyway, even criminal ways, court ways, getting other lawyer ways, getting other people in the family to shame him ways, no matter which way you frickin' see it. The only way that this works out for me and my father, and trust me, I love my father, that's why I'm working with him instead of spending my whole life trying to work against him. Spent my whole life trying to work this out with my family. I'm still trying, but the minute I'm pushed off the grid, I'm a dead soldier, so I'll have to just handle this my way. But I'm still trying to follow Jesus and have love in my heart for my father, forgiveness. And if he has to make the decision to want to handle this on his own. Why do I gotta get my father involved, and why does he have to want to handle this? Because if this gets handled any other way, he'll be incriminated. But if I am working with him, and he is willing to say, yes, I did not know these things were going on, my wife lied to me, she told me that giving a child extra medication was okay, and I went along with it, and I did not realize anything was wrong. My daughter seemed horrified, my daughter's husband, my son, everybody was horrified, but I didn't understand what was going on. Now I understand my wife was lying to me. That's why my own daughter was horrified that day. Or, well, I didn't understand that my son had an overdose on the ground. My wife came over and told me, those doctors don't know what they're talking about. And then just let the child sleep it off. Why would I think anything's up? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I have no idea that my son lost his vision and is experiencing an overdose with all these symptoms. Well, sir, why didn't you help him with his coordination after you moved to New Mexico? I thought it was cured by ballet, my wife told me. My wife put him in ballet. We moved to Texas, and I never heard about it again. Nobody was speaking about it. I didn't know we were supposed to be doing that. I didn't know my wife knew we were supposed to be doing that. She told me we were fine. My father has to be willing to make these statements to get off the hook himself. And the best way this works out is me and my father working together. But if he does not, this works out for me painfully and dead until I get the truth out there, my father's little dirty secret about his second wife and what she did to me and what everybody in the family saw, heard, commented on. I mean, for goodness sake, my sister heard my mother say it was okay to give me extra medication. I mean, there's just so many of these. The overdose was reported at the doctor. My mother admitted that something happened with the medication. There was a super reaction, and that's all the son's talking about. But let's not talk about that. So she admitted that there was a reaction with medication. The teachers were worried about me at the same time. Physical therapy started at the same time. Speech therapy, all because the teachers all of a sudden said I changed. They said I was one way one week, and they're bringing me in the hallway asking me if anything changed at home. My arm doesn't seem to be writing the same. I don't seem to be talking the same as I did the week before. So they start doing physical therapy, speech therapy. The doctors start looking into it. And of course, my mom cuts off all teachers, all doctors, brings me to Texas. Even though my father didn't want to go, she's trying to convince her 7-year-old, even though a 7-year-old's going, yes, no, maybe, yes, no, maybe. Of course, she brings him in another room and says, no, just stick with yes. There's no hurricanes, there's no tornadoes, just stick with yes. She's trying to convince. And she's convincing my father to go to Texas. And when we ask why she wants to go, she says she just wants to change the scenery. She wants to drop all doctors, all education, all friends, her job, everything, because she wants to change the scenery. You buy a fucking poster or you go on vacation when you want to change the scenery. You don't lose all your friends and education and health care. That's for sure. But my father continues and continues to use his excuses. I forget. It's a fantasy. He's a liar. He's a thief. He's mentally ill. And that causes it so doctors no longer want to work with me when I bring this up to, us say, the Department of Health and Human Services to help me fill out Social Security paperwork. And they ask me for his number, and I warn them against even bothering with him. They call, and what do you think they do? All of a sudden, they're purposely trying to misfile and just purposely fucking up and crashing my Social Security. Well, why would they do that? They were so interested in helping me before. What do you think my father said to make that type of reaction happen? Well, I'll tell you. He's mentally ill. He's making up all this Social Security. He's mentally ill. He's mentally ill. It's a fantasy. And then they're like, oh, this kid is just some kid who can work and was called mentally ill, and he's making up fantasies. Well, we're not going to put up with that. Well, he has a right to come in here. Zach has every right, so we can't refuse it, but we can fuck with him to hell so he doesn't want to keep trying. So they just fucked with me to hell, and I can't use it because I'm disabled. Literally, they're just disqualifying me because of my father's words and the fact that I'm disabled. Even if I fill out paperwork, go down there in person, call, they just get me a worker, say they're not my worker, get me a worker, say they're not my worker, and I never talk to anybody. Months go by. It's just a bunch of bullshit. And it all happened as soon as they talked to my father, and I know why. My father said, it's a fantasy, it's a lie, came up and emailed them a bunch of stuff my mother created fraudulently, the stuff I really need a lawyer to clear up, the stuff that if I go, as soon as I have a lawyer, I plan to go to a psychiatrist. I only need the lawyer to help me with the psychiatrist to file paperwork. And when I go to a psychiatrist and tell them this, they'll file new paperwork over my father. But if I go to a psychiatrist without having a lawyer to give proper documentation because of my speech difficulties, we won't get anywhere at 15 minutes a time. So I need to have a lawyer, we need to work with a psychiatrist, then they'll file the paperwork away for my actual disabilities. But until that happens, until I can afford an actual good lawyer, I'm stuck with my father trying to get me killed, and he wants me to make $0 for the rest of my life and die in a hole and keep his secret to myself. He wants me to take his secret to my grave, and he wants me to die as soon as possible. That's his goal. His goal is to keep saying the same old rhetoric over and over until he can hide this and kill me. He does not want his little dirty secret about his second wife to come out. Now his daughter knows that right in front of him, right in front of me, right in front of her husband, that my mother said these exact words. So my sister asked why I was mad at her. I said it's because she's crazy and she gives me extra medication and stuff like that. They said give an example, so I did. And then I asked, do you think it's okay to give a child extra medication? And you know what my mother answered? Yes. So first she said, I gave you extra medication, so what? Then I asked that question. She answered yes. So not only did she admit to giving me extra medication and then saying, so what? Then on top of it, I asked the simple question, do you guys think it's okay? Actually, sorry, I asked her, do you think it's okay to give a child extra medication as a punishment? She said yes. Then I looked around the room and said, does anybody see a problem with this? Of course, everybody did but my father. And then when everybody was shocked, oh, Dad, you don't think there's anything wrong with doing that? And my father said, what am I missing? I don't understand. Because he's just blindly agreeing with his wife and my mother, while my mother drugs and causes damage to my body. And now I need help with the damage that my mother caused to my body. I wasn't allowed to get help during my childhood. Yes, I had problems all the way back at age 7, seizures, but my mother wouldn't allow me to go to a doctor to get help with those issues. She just wanted to make up stories to psychiatrists and get me lots of pills from made up psychiatrists. And oh boy, when you're on all those pills, the psychiatrist will give you every single disorder that your mother wants. They will go along with it if you like it or not. You call your mother a liar. You try to explain things. It doesn't matter. You're only an 8-year-old. You don't have words yet. Your mother has words that put you down and get you drugged. So you just have no way to get help. And if your mother keeps trafficking you to state, nobody can help you. And nobody did. And still to this day, I'm trying to go to the doctors to get treated. And oh boy, my father's really trying to kill me. And I've given him so many opportunities to handle this with me. He doesn't even get in any trouble. I mean, goddamn, he's a victim and will lie to too. But neglecting your child and then trying to finish him off is a problem for me. Now that he knows, now that he's been given an opportunity to handle this after his second wife drank her and pilled herself to death in front of him, now he can deal with it. And if he says, oh, my wife didn't pill herself to death, my wife didn't drink, well, the one day with 20% of her liver working, she drank with her liver failing, and she only lasted a couple, like 12 hours, 16 hours before she was back in the emergency room, and then she passed away. And of course, my father did hide this from the doctors. You know, she needs a liver transplant. I don't think I would tell the doctors at that time either. But right after she passes away, it's important to get that out there for your son. Very important. You can't hurt her by saying anything about her drinking anymore, but you can hurt your son. And that's important. Yes, your wife drank while her liver was failing. That shows that she had a problem. Okay, how about her taking her son's Vicodin? Yes, she took her son's Vicodin, and she got caught by her husband once, who acted inappropriately, never counted pills, never checked the pills again. Meanwhile, I'm acting like an adult, and yes, my mother kept on taking my Vicodin. So I had to stop her by taking I had to take my prescription back so my mother would stop stealing my medication. And my father was totally okay with my mother stealing my medication, wasn't counting them, wasn't stopping her. It still continued. And if I brought it back up, you think my father gave a fuck? No, I'd just be punished again. So anyways, I'm trying to have him handle this. I brought it up to him again today, and they gave me a bunch of double talk again. I don't need double talk. I need you to understand that you want to do this. My father should want to do this. It's his only way out. If I die, the whole family is going to get a black mark. A terrible, terrible black mark. And he's putting me in terrible danger, the family in danger, for years now. For many, many years. And now he's trying to put us even in more danger. Meanwhile, all he has to do is tell the truth. He has to stand by me and tell the truth to save himself. Fuck me, okay? If you don't give a fuck about me, that's one thing. But I'm willing to get you out of trouble, work with you so that I can live a normal life, stand by the guy who kept on doing this to me, and allow him to say, well, I did not know because my wife was lying to me. I did not know because my wife was lying to me. I didn't realize it was this bad. But now that I hear from my daughter and son, and I remember this big conversation in my living room where Valerie was horrified, everybody was horrified, and I didn't understand what was going on. I remember Zach speaking up at the doctor's, and if I don't remember, I guess Zach could go bring me to these places, or Valerie could remind me, or Zach could remind me, and now that I hear it, it doesn't sound good. And now that I know my wife was drinking the day she came home, now that I know my wife was taking my son's pills, I watched her take one, but I didn't know there was more. You know, there was lots of moving around. I know we did move Zach to Texas, and we did move him to New Mexico, and we did move him to Maine, and we did move him to Chelmsford, and we did move him to Haverhill, and we did move him to Lawrence, and then we did move him to Chelmsford, and then we did move him out to a shelter in Lowell, but the shelter wouldn't take him due to his disability, so they moved him out to the woods, and then Zach moved to another shelter in Lawrence, and that shelter in Lawrence had a 30-day in, 60-day out program, and they didn't give a fuck if you were stone drunk or needing an emergency ambulance. They would let you stay. But it was only 30 days, so then I shifted to Haverhill, but had another injury, another incident. Now this one wasn't that big a deal, so then I ended up going back to Lowell, but we still had problems. They were finding me on the side of the road. I was told that my disabilities were getting in the way. I had an anxiety attack with somebody wanting to hold a piece of glass to me because I was just sitting across from them, overseeing something. I just saw something. It's not like I fucking cared. I just saw. You're not allowed to see people do drugs and commit crimes in a dry shelter. No, no, no. If you see that and they come up to you and they tell you, we'll fuck you up if you say anything. I didn't say anything, but I told them, man, don't threaten me. I don't give a fuck what you do to me. I'll do what I fucking want. Just like my father doesn't want me to call him. After you cripple somebody, calling is the last of your issues. Do you know what happens to you when you do something like he did to me? Does anybody understand what the street rules are? I am being very giving here. I am giving him so many chances to handle this, so much forgiveness. I have literally gave him so much. I'm even being nice to him as he talks down and horrible to me. I mean, goddamn, the level of respect I'm giving this man as he tries to cripple me is unbelievable. The stuff that I've seen people do for so less. I mean, if somebody did 1/10 of this to a child in front of me, if I saw a mother acting like my mother and doing it to a child, oh my God, I would be beating the shit out of them. I would say, get away from that child now. I'm calling the authorities. I'd be getting them away. As soon as I see an overdose at my feet, as soon as I see the trafficking, as soon as my wife says that it's okay to give extra medication to a child, I wouldn't be agreeing with her nodding my head. I would be like, oh my God, I got to get my wife into an institution. Okay, Zach, you're not going to be able to live with us for a while. You're going to have to be going in the custody of DSS again. And my wife is going to have to go into some treatment program. And I'm sorry, but my wife needs help right now, so there's no way we can raise you right now. That's what I would be doing. But my father's letting her continue damaging my body. Just totally ignoring that his wife just told his son, his daughter, and his daughter's husband that it's okay to give extra medication to a child. And she also admitting that she already did this. And I'm saying that this has happened several times is why I'm upset at my mother. And they, and that's where it's left. Nobody cares. So yeah, he still can call me. He can still handle this. Valerie can handle this with me. I care about them all greatly, or I wouldn't be struggling this much to try to handle this with them. I would just be doing whatever the fuck I want to do. But instead, I'm doing this the follow Jesus way, do the right thing, love, give forgiveness, all that. But they don't want my forgiveness. They don't want my love. They don't want to handle this. They want me to die in a hole and keep their secret. That's what my father wants. Well, he can't have that. I'll tell you right now, he can't have that. I'm not going to spend 25 years suffering, 15 years getting drugged with over-the-counter pills from her cabinet, pills from doctors that she's lying to, drooling on myself, having overdoses, having seizures in the woods of New Mexico, and then being like, hey, yeah, I'm fucking crippled for life thanks to your wife, and these symptoms go back to childhood at age 7, so we know no drugs are involved. Now, yes, I have hepatitis, and you can blame me for that if you like. But the childhood stuff that I'm talking about, the 25 years of suffering that I've been trying to get handled, that I talked to you about, that I talked to Valerie about in front of you, that I talked about at the doctor's office, that I was talking to you about over and over, yeah, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm not going to get crippled and not get medical care and have my doctors try to follow your wife's design. I'm not going to have my doctors believing your wife's fantasies. And I don't have money for fancy lawyers to clean up your wife's all mistakes. I can't go pay 20 grand going around the country hiring lawyers trying to find all your wife's stories, all your wife's fantasies. Nope. He's going to have to want to handle this. He's going to have to want to deal with this with his kids. All his kids. Valerie knows stuff, I know stuff, Tim knows stuff, and you know what? His grandkid was afraid. The amount of trauma to a kid like Seth, seeing his uncle go through this, getting rulers beatings and crazy stuff like that, and then being afraid to visit his own grandmother, that affects you during adulthood in your relationships, believe it or not. So he deserves to tell that out too. He deserves to say, hey, I did not like seeing Zach get hurt, and I didn't like being scared of Grandma some of the time. I loved her some of the time. I was scared of her at some of the time. It was a mixed emotion, and I do not like that. I think that is wrong. He has every right to say that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That allows him to move on emotionally. And Tim has every right to say, God damn, your wife was crazy. And Valerie has every right to say, what I heard your wife say about admitting to giving Zach extra medicine and so what, and thinking it's okay to give a child extra medication and admitting to that, and then you agreeing with it, that bothers me a lot, and that tells me that Zach's telling the truth. They all have a right to come forward to my father, and I have every right to medical care, and we should be cleaning this up. And I've given everybody, I've contacted Tim, I've contacted Valerie, and my father. I've left Seth out of this. I just told him I loved him. That's it. And I thought that time might be one of my last. That was during a seizure. I had a seizure, and I told my nephew I loved him. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. It was right trying to pass a stool. I had a seizure, for goodness sake. Just taking a crap. And I shook and shook and shook, but then it hit. So anyways, I called them for that. And I'm not even sure if I got to the hospital for that one. I know I recovered and made that phone call in bad condition, but I wasn't fully, I never fully recover. I never will until we get proper medical care. Well, it won't happen until we clear up some of the fantasies and lies my father agreed to go along with, and that means that he is agreeing to them. Now, he might have not said these words out of his lips, but he signed the goddamn paperwork, and that makes the paperwork his. If you read the paperwork, as far as the legal law is concerned, my father agreed and made these statements. If my mother is saying I have an illness, and my father is signing the paperwork with my mother and agreeing to this, then he's making that same statement. If you are making a statement on paper and adding your signature, it doesn't matter if it's your wife's fantasy or something you made up. It is going to be on paper for life, especially in the medical field. And my father nodded his head while his wife did damage to an orphan. And there's my mother admitting this. And I literally had to go to my adoption party under the influence of pills my mother gave me. What does my father have to say about that? Goddamn, I was so drowsy I passed out in the car. And if he says, well, that must have been your regular medication. Well, why did it never happen again then? Why was it only the day we went to this adoption thing you said? And why was it only at the adoption party? Why was that the only time that I got this tired at that time of day? Where I couldn't even stay awake and I was passed out on a wooden bench. Why would that be the only day? Right after my mother gives me some pills, I get just wicked fucked up and drowsy, and then I can't even stay awake for my own adoption party. I am awake, but my eyes are half-masked. I'm sitting in a chair. People are giving me gifts, asking, what is he, tired? Is he depressed? What's going on? Meanwhile, the next day, I'm back to normal, my hyper self. I got all the drugs in me, but whatever she gave me to make me like that, she didn't give it to me the next day or the day after or the day after. She waited until she wanted to drug me again or shut me up. What was that all about? None of this is a fantasy. It all happened. There was millions of witnesses at the adoption party. People came up to me asking me why I'm tired, why I look depressed. I had no answer for them. But my mother obviously wasn't giving them any context. If my mother said, "Oh, I administered pills before we left," oh, everybody would say. Oh, everybody would say. But is my mother telling anybody at this party that she administered pills before we got in the car while I was in her home? Did anybody seem to want to mention that to any of the people coming up to me asking me, "Why are you seem depressed? Why do you look so tired? Why do you want to curl up on the floor? You know, you can't seem to stand up very much." Once again, this is not normal for a mother to do to a child. Of course it's not. And it's not no fantasy. That's just one of my father's excuses and ways to get out of trouble. It's one of his favorites. When they took my swimming medal, and I was 7 years old, and I was at the doctor's office, and I told the doctor my mother really took that from me, and I wanted it in the orphanage, and my mother took it from me, and I was crying and crying. You know what my mother said? "It's a fantasy. It's a lie. He stole it." 7 years old. Never stole a thing in my life. Never stole a motherfucking thing in my life. The only thing I had no clue about was a book of matches. I said I didn't take the book of matches. All I was trying to do is figure out how to light them, and that's about all. That's it. In my whole entire life at that point. Never stole anything, that's it. Oh, and a kid named Corey cut open a carpet with me, with Courtney watching, and then they all just blamed me for it. And then I said, "No, it was Corey." What? Yes, he's the one who convinced the idea. He came up with the idea. He said, "Zach, why don't you cut the carpet?" He wanted me to get in trouble, I bet. He knew, see, I was too stupid. I was under influence of medications and my mother. I was too stupid to know what was going on. But there was other people that were smarter than me. Kids figure stuff out. The kid in the orphanage figured out how to try to get me mad. He tried to put ketchup in my orange juice that didn't work. Then he had me held down and double drugged by making up a story. Oh yeah, that got me mad. Corey didn't want me to be their favorite, so he told me to go cut up a carpet. I didn't want to. He said there was a knife. I said, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay." And then we both went in, got a knife, a little pocket knife, and we cut a hole in the carpet together. And then they all just blamed me for the carpet. And then when I told them it was Corey, they all just kept on blaming me for the carpet. It was a group effort, and yes, I did do it, but it was a group effort. If Corey did it, I did it, Courtney watched. So there was stuff like that going on. And of course, I'm 5 years old, cutting a carpet on a 7-year-old's advice. So, of course, when they ask me, I say, "No, Corey did it." And I'm telling the truth. Corey did do it, but I'm not admitting to my part. And that was the problem. At 5 years old, I wasn't giving any context. I should have gave context, and I didn't have a vocabulary or the words to describe what was going on yet. And also, my mother loved to make up fantasies about me. Like my swimming medal, for instance. That was very bad. I mean, she just wanted to kill me. I mean, Jesus. The amount of damage she did to me during my childhood, and then the lies she spun to try to convince me it was an allergy attack or I had some illnesses that were psychotic and just needed lots of drugs. Meanwhile, what is she basing this illness off of? A stolen swimming medal. I have attachment disorder because of the swimming medal. I'm a liar because I have the swimming medal. And I'm making up fantasies because of the swimming medal. Well, that's not an illness. You just took a child's swimming medal away. That's all. That's all. That's nothing special there. You stole a child's medal. Do you want to steal lollipops too? And tell the child he's depressed when he cries? I mean, goddamn, is that you're gonna do that too? You're gonna steal child's lollipops away and then tell the doctor he's depressed because he's crying? What the fuck? But anyways, now I'm trying to deal with this the proper way, not treating myself, not getting angry, giving forgiveness. But boy, does my father not want the forgiveness. He wants it the angry way. He does not want to deal this the peaceful way. So we're gonna have to, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I guess die in the woods and then do this however the fuck I want. I'll go down to Florida, die in the woods down there a little bit, try not to use my name so I can get medical care. Because it's warm, the seizures should be reduced. They have medical care down there. And then when I'm even a little bit better, I'll start treating myself with Ativan and alcohol. And then I'll have to come up and handle this by literally shoving this down people's throat and then just hanging myself so I'm in no more pain. I would like to just get medical care, work, and collect Social Security and stuff like that. But none of that is allowed. I'm not allowed to work. I'm not allowed to collect Social Security. And most of all, I'm not allowed to use shelters or any form of medical care. Anytime I try, they just want to treat me for my mother's fantasy. And it always, always gets in the way. I would have to spend the next 20 years going to the same doctors in the same state before anything would probably actually start helping me and making a big difference. By then, I'm gone. I mean, we need to start treating this now. We need to start working on this now. Well, that's not that hard. We just got to get my father to stop keeping secrets.